Welcome to Barnstable Today. I'm Nick Cortez. The state's Special Joint Committee on Redistricting was in Barnstable last night to give Cape Codders the chance to weigh in on how they believe the 10th Congressional District should look after the redistricting process is complete. One thing we know already is that the 10th District will become the 9th, as Massachusetts is going to lose a seat in Congress due to the minimal statewide population growth reflected in the 2010 census. As for which incumbent congressman's seat will be eliminated, well, that's up to the committee. Not surprisingly, Congressman Bill Keating was first to testify at last night's hearing at Cape Cod Community College. Keating talked about what makes the 10th Congressional District similar and unique, arguing that the district should remain whole. But the most interesting part of Keating's testimony came when State Representative Paul Frost of Auburn essentially asked Keating to defend why he should keep his seat as the only freshman congressman in the delegation.
But one of the things I wanted to ask you is a number of the other public hearings that we've attended, the congressmen have made it a point to discuss seniority and saying that we as a committee and as the state legislature that will ultimately decide this send any new maps to the governor, that we should take into account seniority and committee assignments. It all kind of, you're being the new member of Congress, being a freshman and obviously the only freshman in Massachusetts. What would your comments be about that and how our community should look at or take that into account or not take it into account?
Well, the seniority system exists in Washington, for better or for worse, the way that it exists. As a freshman, if you're looking at, I'm already a ranking member of the Oversight Committee, so sometimes everything's not done on seniority. There are people senior to me that aren't ranking members of major subcommittees, as I am in Homeland Security, so there's always anomalies if that's what you're going to look at. If it was as simple as that, you would have a much easier time. The practical nature of that, I'll be honest with you, is this. Someone very familiar with redistricting in our delegation, and I spoke recently, and his analysis is this. He said, Bill, if you left today, you don't help solve any of that problem. Because if you look at the geography and the reality of those borders that I discussed, and where I am, where the other people, those districts are from, if I left today, you would still have the problem, I believe, of two, if everyone stays, of two people running against each other. So I don't solve your problem, I guess, and that's a pretty practical and direct answer.
Later, State Representatives Sarah Peake and Tim Madden gave joint testimony on the importance of the fishing industry in the 10th District. Peake felt that keeping the district as close as possible to its current configuration would best protect our maritime industry.
As you look at drawing the Mass House district lines, I would just point out and hope that you would look to such things as continuity of regional school districts, community development corporations like the Lower Cape CDP, and also probably the most significant issue that the Cape is facing over the next 10 years is wastewater management. So in most districts, certainly in Boston, you don't look at things like watersheds, but I would encourage you to look at issues like watersheds, because as we're looking in either a regional way or a town-by-town way to address a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure improvement here on the Cape, we're going to be looking to those watersheds, and I think it would be important to have a contiguous single voice on that. Briefly on the congressional district, I'm going to put on my hat now as somebody who cares deeply about fisheries issues, representing the towns of Chatham, Harwich, Provincetown. They're all coastal communities, Easttown, Wellfleet-Row, and Provincetown. We are fighting for the survival of that industry here on Cape Cod. The industry here on the Cape, and I would say on the islands, Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard as well, it's largely, in fact, it's entirely a small boat fishing industry. You don't see some of the larger boats that fish out of New Bedford, Fall River, Gloucester, and all of that. They have their struggles as well, and there's many of the challenges that we share in common, but in many ways there's a unique set of needs that these small boat fishermen, whether they're lobstermen, brown fishermen, longliners, whatever it might be, that they face. And with the current makeup of our congressional district, I know that we have a strong voice for those fishermen in the person of Bill Keating, because his district certainly stretches way beyond mine. The fishermen in Plymouth share, I believe, more in common with the fishermen of Provincetown and Chatham than they would with the fishermen of New Bedford. So speaking for our local fleets, I would ask that the congressional district be kept contiguous. And speaking...
After that, County Commissioner Bill Doherty took his turn at the microphone. Doherty picked up on Representative Peake's comments regarding the similarities in the district's fishing industry and talked in a more general way about the value of structuring the districts based on common interests between communities rather than purely by population.
The idea of having a geographical boundary that incorporates a community is very important in terms of trying to move agendas forward. So, that's an important issue. I also want to make a point. I used to live in St. Mark's Parish up in Dorchester. And I used to live on Western Road in Wellesley. So in terms of taking a look at where are the commonalities of interest as you look at these things. I understand that you're looking at a demographic regarding to population, but I would suggest to you that Cambridge has more in common with Quincy and Brookline than it does with the Cape. If you take a look at the 535 miles of coastline on Cape Cod, we represent 2/3 of the coastline here in Massachusetts. Everything that has been said about the fisheries is very important, but at the same time, the fisheries extend throughout the South Coast. And as you look at this issue, I wonder if you're thinking outside of the box and taking advantage of what technology can do for you as far as joining areas of mutual interest together, suburbs, rural, as opposed to urban areas. Because I think that there was a congressman who represented this district years ago, Jerry Stubbs. He had a relative, a predecessor, for whom the name gerrymandering was invented. And I believe that this might be a time to take a look at that kind of approach to these things, so that you are gathering together groups in the demographic that have mutual interest, rather than just taking a grid and saying dividing it in that way.
Finally, Barnstable Town Council Vice President Jan Barton shared some thoughts of her own on the sometimes confusing way in which the town of Barnstable is represented on Beacon Hill.
Bear in mind that this is a very unique and special area. And what the previous speaker, Commissioner Doherty, said, and others have said about the wastewater management is critical for this area. So please, if nothing else, keep that in mind when you're working on this redistricting. We have another point. It's a small one, and I heard the comments about Brewster. I'm not sure if anything can be done, but Barnstable is the largest town on the Cape, and we have we share 2 senators, and we have 3 representatives, and that does. I figured it out a couple of years into my service here, but it's confusing for people. And it's just, like I said, it's a minor point, but it's something that if you could look at, and I understand our population has shifted. We just went through a redistricting process here ourselves in town, and it shifted slightly to the east. So I just would, if you could consider that as well, I'd appreciate it.
For more information on the redistricting process, including how you can submit written testimony to the committee, log on to malegislature.gov/district. Well, that's all for now. I'm Nick Cortez, and we'll see you next time on Barnstable Today.